Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for all West Virginia students, sponsored by the West Virginia Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admission Officers and StriveScan. Thank you for joining us today. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at wvacrao.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at that same website, wvacrao.org. I would now like to turn it over to our presenters. Brian, the stage is all yours.
Great, thank you so much. All right, welcome. This is an overview of the financial aid process for the 2021-2022 academic year. My name is Brian Weingart with the West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission and the West Virginia Community Technical College System. I'm joined by other staff from our office. They'll introduce themselves when they get to their part of the presentation. Just to give you an overview of the financial aid application process, there's several financial aid applications that are available to students. The main application is the free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA. You would go to fafsa.ed.gov or fafsa.gov in order to apply. But be aware there are other applications that are available that we'll talk about later on in the presentation. The Promise Scholarship has its own application in addition to the FAFSA. The Western Invest Grant has its own application in addition to the FAFSA. You also want to check at the different colleges that you're looking at, whether they have additional applications that you need to complete. If you're looking at some private out-of-state or institutions that they might require financial aid application through the College Board, known as the CSS profile. Other institutions in the state, they might just require you to apply for admission. They might have a separate application for some of their specific scholarships. And so just ask about their own applications and their own deadlines. And then be aware of the private scholarships that are out there. Your high school guidance counselor is a great resource for local scholarships in your area. You can also go to our website, cfwv.com, the College Foundation of West Virginia. We have a free scholarship search as well as your local community foundations that might have their own applications and their own deadlines. And so be aware of those. The FAFSA became available on October 1st, and so just a couple weeks ago, and so you can start applying for financial aid for next fall of 2021. Be aware the FAFSA itself does not have a deadline, and so you can fill out the FAFSA at any point throughout the year, but be aware specific financial aid programs do have deadlines, and so while you can fill out the FAFSA at any point, you might miss out on a specific program deadline. And so, for instance, the Promise Scholarship has a deadline of March 1st, where you need to file both the FAFSA and the Promise application. Our West Virginia State Grant, also known as the West Virginia Higher Education Grant, has a deadline of April 15th of 2021, where you just need to file the FAFSA by that date. Our West Virginia Invest Grant has a priority deadline of April 15th, 2021. And so while you can fill out the FAFSA at any point, you want to fill out as soon as possible so you don't miss out on specific program deadlines. You do have a QR code there in the bottom right-hand corner. If you put your phone camera on there, it should open up the FAFSA website. Just to give you a quick overview of the federal financial aid programs that are available, there's the federal Pell Grant program. All you have to do is file the FAFSA in order to apply for the federal Pell Grant. It's based on your expected family contribution. This is an index number that's calculated when you submit your FAFSA form. And so if your EFC for this year or expected family contribution is $5,711 or less, then you would qualify for a Pell Grant that might range anywhere from $6,345 for the year down to a little over $600 for the year. Based totally on your index number, you can receive Pell Grant up to 12 full-time semesters or until you earn your bachelor's degree, whichever comes first. But again, Pell Grant is for undergraduate and is need-based. The Federal Supplemental Education Opportunities Grant, also sometimes called SEOG, is a federal grant that's given out to colleges to award to their Pell eligible students. Because it's a block grant, it is limited and is a lot of times awarded on a first come, first served basis. So you do want to try to apply as soon as possible. And if you have a Pell Grant, ask your college about the SEOG or Supplemental Education Opportunities Grant. Federal Work Study is a block award given to colleges to help employ students part-time on the college campus. It might be on campus, might be off campus, but it is part-time, on average about 9 hours a week. You can't work more than 20 hours a week, but you can use those funds to either apply towards your bill or use as spending money. And so just a great way for you to maybe get some experience in your field of study. Maybe it's working in a science lab as a tutor, maybe in the cafeteria or what might in the library. But just to ask about Federal Work Study, this is a question on the FAFSA, so I encourage you to mark yes. You can always turn it down later on. The TEACH grant is for those who want to go into teaching. You can get up to $4,000 a year from the TEACH grant. You just need to be aware that there is a requirement to teach 4 out of the first 8 years you're out of college in a low-income school and a high-need field, or else you have to pay this money back. And so just be aware of the TEACH grant and the specific requirements that you do have to teach, or else pay it back. And then there's the Federal Direct Loan Program. This is a loan through the federal government. There's 2 main types of programs. There's the Stafford Loan Program, which is in the student's name. And then there's the PLUS Loan Program that's either in the parent's name, or if you're a graduate student, in the graduate student's name. They do set annual limits that a student can borrow. So first year freshmen can borrow up to $5,500 in the Stafford Loan Program. The interest rates are variable fixed, and so they fix the interest rates every July 1st for any loans taken out that year, but they do adjust those for the interest rates for any new loans taken out each year. And so there's the Federal Direct Loan Program. Again, you just need to file the FAFSA in order to apply for this Stafford or the PLUS Loan Program. I'm now going to turn it over to Sarah Musgrave, and she's going to talk about the Higher Education Grant Program. Sarah?
Hi, all right, so I'm going to touch on the Higher Education Grant and the West Virginia Invest Grant programs. The West Virginia Higher Education Grant Program is a need-based state grant, and the FAFSA is your only application for this program. So the deadline to submit the 2021-22 FAFSA is April 15th, 2021, to be considered for an award. Now, eligibility can change after you are awarded if information on the FAFSA is incorrect at the time you were awarded and it is corrected later. So if you notice incorrect information on your student aid report or the SAR after completing the FAFSA, be sure to correct the information by May so you are awarded based on the correct information. Now, to qualify for an award, your EFC on the FAFSA must be 11,000 or lower, and you also must be a West Virginia resident. Your residency is based on the residency of the parent you include on the FAFSA, which is generally the parent you live with most. Now, you must also be enrolled full-time once you start college to receive the West Virginia Higher Education Grant. Slide. Brian? Okay. So this slide shows the 2 award amount tiers for the current award year based on the EFC from the FAFSA. So for those with an EFC of 0 to 5,711, the maximum award amount is up to $2,900 for the year. And for EFCs from 5,712 to 11,000, the award amount is up to $2,700 for the year. Slide. So the West Virginia Invest Grant is one of our newest grant programs. It is a last dollar in program that pays toward tuition and mandatory fees at participating institutions for students enrolled in eligible certificate and associate degree programs. Now, last dollar in means that certain federal grants, like the Federal Pell Grant, state aid, such as the West Virginia Higher Education Grant, and institutional tuition waivers must first be applied to tuition and mandatory fees, then this grant pays the remainder. To apply, you must complete both the West Virginia Invest Grant application and the FAFSA every year, and you can still apply if you plan to enroll in spring 2020-21, and you do that by completing the 2020-21 Invest Grant application and FAFSA. But for most students in the audience, you will first be enrolling in either summer 2021, fall 2021, or possibly next spring of 2022. So you will need to complete the 2021-22 West Virginia Invest Grant application and the 2021-22 FAFSA. Now, both applications opened October 1 a couple weeks ago, and there is a priority deadline of April 15th. But applications completed after that date will still be accepted. Slide. So before applying, you should know the eligibility criteria. So to be eligible, you must be a West Virginia resident for at least 12 months prior to applying. You must have earned a high school diploma or the equivalent. You must not be in default on a federal student loan. You must be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. You cannot have a prior degree of an associate's degree or higher, or have attempted 90 or more credit hours. You must be enrolled in an eligible program at a participating institution. You must maintain satisfactory academic progress, or SAP, at your institution. And then to renew this, you will have to have a cumulative 2.0 GPA at the end of the spring term every year. Now, there is no age limit to apply. Current high school students and current college students may apply. And there is no income limit to be eligible because this program is not based on financial need. And then you also do not have to be full-time to receive this. As long as you're enrolled at least half-time or for half-time hours or more, you can qualify for this grant program. But all the eligibility criteria and a list of the participating institutions and eligible programs at each institution are available online at wvinvest.org. Slide. All right, so applicants who are eligible will have to pay for, complete, and pass a drug screen through our approved process during the 60 days prior to the start of each term you receive an award. So you will also have to complete a promissory note each year, agreeing to be a resident of West Virginia for 2 years after graduating or dropping below part-time enrollment. Or if you don't meet the 2-year residency requirement, you will have to pay back the grant with interest and fees. And then you must also complete 2 hours of community service during every term you receive an award, and that will be approved by your institution. So again, you can find all of this information and more, including frequently asked questions, online at wvinvest.org. And I will turn things over to Tana, who is going over the HEAPS grant programs and the Promise Scholarship, I believe.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tana Pendle, and I work with the Higher Ed Policy Commission, and I oversee the HEAPS grant. So we're going to cover that first. The HEAPS grant is a need-based grant. This is also a block grant that's given to the eligible schools in the state of West Virginia for students to pursue a bachelor's degree, an associate degree, or a certificate. Students can receive this if they are attending part-time. So whereas the West Virginia Higher Education Grant Program is for students who are attending on a full-time basis, which is 12 credit hours or more at most institutions, students who are attending part-time or 3 to 11 credit hours or the equivalent can receive the HEAPS part-time grant program. Students have to have a 2.0 cumulative GPA to qualify, and they also must be meeting their institution's satisfactory academic progress standards. Students can actually contact the school for the application for this program. Unlike our other programs, we usually have a separate application that you have to fill out. In this particular program, funds are given to the institutions, and the institutions determine which students are eligible and qualify. It is awarded on a first come, first served basis at most schools. So you'll want to contact them early if you plan to attend on a part-time basis. And also you want to fill out the FAFSA because the FAFSA is required. It can be used to pay for tuition and fees at eligible schools. And for non-public colleges, it can be awarded for $243 per credit hour during the current academic year. And the award amount is, it fluctuates each year. So it'll be based on next year's funding. For most of the students that would be on here for 2021-22, it may be a little bit different. Slide. A subcomponent of the HEAPS program is the HEAPS Workforce Program, but this is for specific short-term training programs. And so if you are planning to attend an career or vocational institution or a 2-year institution for a short-term training program such as medical training, mining, gaming, LPN are some examples of eligible programs. You may be eligible for the HEAPS Workforce Grant. You can receive up to $2,000 per year to go towards an eligible program, and these programs are approved on an annual basis at eligible institutions. Again, a student must file a FAFSA, and they do have to complete a HEAPS application to qualify for this award. So if you're interested in it, you should contact your school or the college or vocational school for an application, and the application became available on July 1st. Slide. Now we're going to move on to the Promise Scholarship. So to qualify for the Promise Scholarship, it is a merit-based scholarship program. So students have to meet certain academic requirements. First requirement is a 3.0 overall and core GPA. So a student has to have both the overall GPA of a 3.0, which includes all high school coursework that a student has taken. This would be the GPA that you would see on your transcript. In addition, a student has to have an eligible core GPA of at least a 3.0. Your core GPA is only going to include English, math, science, and history coursework. So both of these have to be a 3.0 for a student to qualify for Promise. A student also has to get an eligible score on either the ACT or SAT. So you don't have to have both. You only have to have one eligible test score on either test. So the requirement for the ACT is a 22 composite with at least a 20 in each subject area. The requirement for the SAT is an 1100 total score with at least a 530 in the evidence-based reading and writing and a 520 in the math side. Students also have to fill out the FAFSA and the Promise Scholarship application by March 1st. So for students planning to attend college during the 2021-22 academic year, you'll want to make sure that you get your FAFSA filled out by March 1st, and you can find it at fafsa.gov. And then the Promise Scholarship application must also be filled out by March 1st, and you can find that on the CFWV website at cfwv.com/promise. Students have to achieve that eligible ACT or SAT test score by a certain deadline. For this year, the deadline is currently July 17th for the ACT, so that would be July 17th, 2021, June 5th for the SAT. We do not super score for Promise eligibility, so you do have to achieve an eligible score on one test. We also do not accept residual scores for the class of 2021. Now, due to COVID, the ACT and the SAT deadline may be extended, so be sure to check the CFWV website, and if you've already applied, check your email if there are any changes to the deadline. Slide. For the ACT and the SAT, we do automatically receive scores, and we must receive an official score for students to be awarded. We receive the scores, but there is a delay. So for the ACT, it usually takes around 8 weeks for us to receive official scores for all students who take the test in West Virginia. For SAT, it takes a little bit longer depending on when you take the test. We receive the file for students who took the SAT twice per year. So anybody who takes the test between August and February will get a file in February, and anyone who takes it March through July, we would receive a file in August. So there's two ways to make sure that we receive your scores a little bit sooner. The easiest way is when you are registering for the ACT or the SAT, be sure to use our reporting code. You're allowed to send your scores for free to so many different institutions or colleges, and that includes our office. So if you include our registration or reporting code during your registration, we'll receive the score sooner. You can also pay a fee after you receive your scores, after you've taken the test, to have the scores sent to our office, and we usually receive them within a week or so. So to do that, you would go to the College Board website or the ACT website for the ACT and just request those score reports be sent to our office. Slide. Additional requirements for Promise: the student must complete at least half of their graduation requirements at a West Virginia high school. So not only do you have to graduate, but you also have to complete at least half of the coursework at an eligible school. Students must be a West Virginia resident for at least 12 months prior to the Promise application deadline. So for the class of 2021, students must be a West Virginia resident by at least March 1st, 2020. Students can apply late, but funding is not guaranteed for late awards. So if we should be short on funds, we may not be able to award students if you miss that March 1st deadline. Also, you would not qualify for a fall award, but you may qualify for the following spring. But to avoid that, just make sure that you get your Promise application and your FAFSA filled out by March 1st. Slide. If you are eligible for the Promise Scholarship, you can receive up to $47.50 per year. It covers tuition and mandatory fees at eligible institution and can be used towards a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree in the state of West Virginia. You cannot take the Promise Scholarship out of state. And it doesn't matter if your program is not in the state of West Virginia, you cannot take it out of state under any circumstances. However, if you do apply and you do qualify, you can attend an out-of-state institution for up to 1 year, and you can come back and regain it if you have met the requirements of a first-year scholar. Community service is highly encouraged, but we do not collect that information, but we do encourage you to complete 20 hours of community service for each year that you receive the award. Students have 6 years after being awarded to utilize their Promise Scholarship, but that time is extended for those students that enlist in the military. Slide. Promise is renewable for up to 8 semesters towards a 4-year or bachelor's degree program, or 4 semesters towards an associate degree or 2-year degree program. To renew the scholarship, a student must maintain a 2.75 cumulative GPA during their first year and a 3.0 thereafter. So we're looking at a cumulative GPA, which is going to include all college coursework that you've taken, but it's only going to be looked at the end of the academic year. The academic year being the fall semester, the following spring, and then the following summer. A student who receives the award in a 12-month period for 2 semesters in the academic year must earn 30 credit hours during the academic year. If for some reason a student only receives a 1 semester award, so they don't get it for fall, but they do get it for spring or vice versa, they have to complete at least 15 credit hours in that academic year. Slide. You can find the Promise Scholarship application on the CFWV website at cfwv.com/promise. The burnt orange button in the middle of the screen, WVSAM, is where students apply. That is the West Virginia Student Aid Management System. So that you would click that SAM button to find the link to our system to apply for the Promise Scholarship. You can also see with the blue arrow, Promise resources. So this is information related to Promise for students who are applying, and also for students who receive the award, this is where you will find additional information regarding your award. Slide. So to apply, edit, or check the status of your Promise Scholarship application, you're going to visit the West Virginia Student Aid Management System. We refer to it as the SAM system. Our award notifications are sent electronically to students via email, and then if you opt in, you can also receive text messages. You can also provide a parent email whenever you are registering for the Promise Scholarship if you would like for them to get updated statuses on their email as well. Students qualify based upon 6th and 7th semester grade information. That would be 6th semester at the end of your junior year, 7th semester would be the middle of your senior year, but you have to maintain those grades through your final semester to maintain your eligibility. On the flip side of that, a student may not qualify with 6th or 7th semester grade information, but they may qualify with their 8th if they get that GPA, but the overall and the core up to a 3.0. Slide. I'm going to pass it over to Michelle Marlowe to go over the Engineering, Science, and Technology Scholarship.
Thanks, Tana. I'm going to go over the West Virginia Engineering, Science, and Technology Scholarship. You'll hear this referred to as a scholarship and a forgivable loan. It is a merit-based scholarship / loan. For each year that you would receive the scholarship, you do commit to work in West Virginia in a STEM occupation for each year that you would receive the scholarship. The online application is available at cfwv.com, and it is available now. And you do have to apply every year. So you would have to complete this application each year after October 1st. It does have a March 1st application deadline, so you have until now, until March 1st to complete that application. Students must have a 3.0 overall GPA, be enrolled or accepted for enrollment full-time in an engineering, science, or technology program. Approved programs are determined by the federal government, and if you visit the Engineering, Science, and Technology website on cfwv.com, there is a list of all eligible programs and majors, so you can check that to see if the program or major that you're interested in at your institution is eligible. It does have a maximum annual award of $3,000, and since it does have the option of becoming a loan if you do not work in a STEM approved occupation or decide to move out of state, it does require that a student complete a master promissory note. We'll go on to the next one. The Underwood Smith Teaching Scholars Program. This is one of the newer programs. This one is also a merit-based scholarship and forgivable loan. The application is available now. First round applications are due by December 31st. So if you're interested in teaching, definitely encourage you to go online and complete that application as soon as possible. Students must be enrolled as a full-time student in a course leading to certification as a teacher in critical need fields of math, science, special education, or elementary education. Students must have a 3.25 GPA and have college-ready test scores. The maximum annual award for this scholarship is $10,000. So you can get up to $40,000 towards your degree with this particular program. There are 3 rounds of applications. The first round is due December 31st, and then there'll be a second round and a third round this spring. It can be renewed automatically for up to 4 years, and it does have a service requirement where you must teach in those critical need fields of math, science, special education, or elementary education for 5 years in West Virginia, or it would become a loan that you would have to pay back with any fees and interest. The West Virginia Nursing Scholarship Program. These scholarships are for students going into nursing. You must have completed half of the program in order to be eligible. So in most cases, for instance, if you're going into a 4-year nursing program, you wouldn't be eligible to apply for this until you've completed 2 years of that program. But you do have to complete 1/2 and then you can apply. You do commit to work or teach in West Virginia. This particular program is for students interested in LPN, RN, LPN teaching certificate, and MSN and doctoral programs. For more information, you can visit the West Virginia Center for Nursing.org or go to cfwv.com. This application opens up each April 15th through June 1st to apply for the fall 2021 through summer 2022 cycle. So students that would be graduating in May, this cycle would open up in April for those 3 terms. And then I think I will turn it back over to Brian now to finish it off.
Yep, thank you, Michelle. And so at this point, I just want to stop and just remind everyone, if you do have questions, you can ask your questions in the question and answer button, and we will try and answer those questions between now and the end of the session. And so the next slide is dealing with the academic common market. And so there are cases where some academic programs are not offered in the state of West Virginia. And so we do have agreements with schools outside of West Virginia where you can pay in-state tuition. Again, this doesn't impact your eligibility for state financial aid because state financial aid, again, can't be taken outside of West Virginia, but it does give you the benefit where you can pay in-state tuition at those schools where we might not offer the academic program inside the state of West Virginia. And so you can go to the sreb.org website in order to get more information on the academic common market. So our website, again, is the College Foundation of West Virginia. If you've not been on this website, I encourage you to do so. It is a great resource for you through the college planning process. So you go to cfwv.com. And this is what our website looks like. If you want to get to our financial aid pages, you can click on financial aid planning and then scholarships. It'll take you to a listing of all our state financial aid programs that we've gone over here in this session. You can also do college planning. And so if you want to search for colleges and which colleges offer which academic programs, we have ACT and SAT prep questions on here, as well as a free scholarship search. It has career interest surveys. And so if you're not sure what you want to do, you can take some surveys and it will help you determine the different areas that you might be looking at in regards to an occupation. You can develop a portfolio on here and save it through an account. And so there's lots of resources in here through your college search process, and encourage you if you've not done so. Also, you can go to CFWB and we have links to webinars that we're doing throughout the year that we're recording. And so if you're looking for a specific webinar on a FAFSA line by line or a specific webinar on one of our financial aid programs, that you can go to CFWB and find the link to those recorded webinars. We also have a texting program, and so you can go to cfw.com and sign up for our texting program. And so if you're a high school senior, you could sign up for that, and then we will send you periodically throughout the year and through your first year in college, different text messages to remind you to do your FAFSA, on ACT and SAT registration deadlines, to sign up for your classes. And the great thing about the texting program is if you have questions, when we send you the text, that you can then respond back to that text with any questions, and then we will answer those questions. And so it is a great resource and tool for you, because if we don't know the answer, we can get you in contact with someone at the college you're looking at or the college you're attending for assistance in whatever issue you might be having. And so again, if you've not signed up for that, I encourage you to do so at cfwb.com. If you have questions as you're going through the financial aid process, I encourage you to call there's the federal financial aid hotline number at 1-800-433-3243. You can also get assistance by calling our office at 1-877-987-7664. You can also, if you go to cfwb.com and to our financial aid pages, in the bottom right-hand corner, we have a chat bot called Sam. And so if you click on questions, ask Sam, you can click on there, ask if you have a general financial aid question, whether it's the FAFSA, federal financial aid, or state financial aid, you can ask that in our chat bot, and it will either give you an answer, or if it doesn't know the answer, it will redirect it to our office so that we can answer that question for you. And so this just goes over our chatbot. And so it just, again, answering general financial aid questions on our cfwb.com website. Again, if you do have questions, feel free to ask them in the question and answer button at the top of the page. You have our contact information here on this page. And so if you have questions at all during the financial aid process, you can contact us at 304-558-4618. You can also send us an email at wvfinancialaid@wvhepc.edu, and we'll be happy to answer any financial aid questions that you might have. We also can do appointments with FAFSAs, and so as we're going through this COVID-related situation, we are doing screen sharing appointments. And so if you contact our office, ask for an appointment, we can set up a time where we can do a screen share with you, and where we can see your computer screen and walk you through the FAFSA filing process. And so just let us know if you have any issues with filing the FAFSA or any of our financial aid applications. We'd be happy to help you through that. Or again, if you have general questions regarding financial aid, whether it's federal or state, we'd be happy to help you in any way we can. And so that comes to the end of our presentation. And so if you do have questions, go ahead and ask them in the question and answer button on your screen, and we can answer those. Otherwise, we appreciate your attendance, and we'll wait here for a little bit, see if any questions come over. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Stephanie.
All of our students that are attending and watching, feel free to ask any questions you would have. Our presenters are more than happy to answer them for you. We will wait just a few minutes to see if anyone types anything in. to ask before we wrap things up?
So we did have a question come through that just an overview of the FAFSA. And so when you're filling out the FAFSA, this is for a junior, so you would not fill out until your senior year, but for those that are filling it out, it is a federal document that is published by the U.S. Department of Education. And so when you fill it out, you go online to the FAFSA website, FAFSA.gov. You would fill out the FAFSA, and so what it'll be asking for is there's 5 main sections to the FAFSA. First section is just general demographic information for the student, and so it'd be the student's name, address, telephone number, social security number, date of birth, and information like that. The second section deals with dependency status questions, and so it's going to be asking specific questions to determine whether you have to put parents' information on the FAFSA or not. And so the majority of high school seniors are going to be dependents of their parents, and so the parents would be putting their information on the FAFSA. But there are situations if the student is in foster care, if the legal guardianship has been assigned to someone other than the biological parents, things like that, in which case they would not require parents' information. But again, in most cases, you'll be putting parents' information on the FAFSA. When you get to the next section, which is going to, again, to be the parents' information, the first question obviously we normally get is who is the parent? And so in cases where the student is living with both biological parents and they're married or even unmarried but yet living together, you would list both parents' information on the FAFSA. In cases of divorce and separation, is the parent that the student lives with most during the last 12-month period. If that parent is then remarried, it's the parent and step-parents information that goes on the FAFSA, and the other biological parent does not appear on the FAFSA. And so once you determine which parent goes on the FAFSA, then they will be then asking for income tax information. And so for the class of 2021, the FAFSA that you're going to be filling out for next fall, you'll be listing 2019 income information. So that'd be the income taxes you just filed on July 15th, 2020. If you're a junior, then you'd be, when you file the FAFSA your senior year, it'll be asking for 2020 federal income tax information. And so you'd put that information, there's a link directly to the IRS to where you can transfer that information from the IRS directly into the FAFSA to answer those questions. You'll then go over the student's income information, and so you would then list their income information from that tax year, whether it's, again, for a senior this year, it'd be 2019. If you're a junior, when you fill out your senior year, it'd be 2020 income information. And at the very end, then there is signatures where both the student and the parent need to sign off on it. There's a couple ways you can sign it. The majority is an electronic signature where you have to create a username password called an FSA ID. And then this would be your electronic signature. You would create one for the student and then one for the parent, and get that submitted. And so that's, again, a fairly brief overview of the FAFSA filing process. There's a school section where you list up to 10 schools on the FAFSA, and whatever schools, colleges you list on the FAFSA would get a copy of it. In all cases, our office would always get a copy of the FAFSA if you're a West Virginia resident. So hopefully that answered that question. We did get another question that came through. And so they're a junior, but they're looking for information about scholarships. And so again, the best place to look for in terms of local scholarships is your high school counselor. And so just to get a good idea of what scholarships you might want to apply for your senior year, you might want to start looking now so that you can see what the criteria is, whether they require an essay, maybe there's community service, or things that you might be able to do to improve your resume when you're applying for those scholarships next year when you're a senior. You can also go to our website, cfw.com, and start searching for scholarships there. Again, most scholarships you'll be applying for will be during your senior year. There's not a lot of scholarships for underclassmen at this point. The second question, do schools give out information on scholarships? If you go to every college, on their website will be what's called a net price calculator. And so you can fill out a net price calculator on any college's website. It'll give you a rough estimate of how much in scholarships and grants you might qualify for based on your family's income, based on your high school GPA, and based on any ACT or SAT test that you've taken. And then they should also have a listing of general scholarships on their website. And so that if you're looking for scholarships from schools or colleges, I encourage you to go to the websites and you should be able to get information on that. The FAFSA itself will tell you immediately if you qualify for the Pell Grant program, but it won't tell you all the other scholarships or grants you might qualify for through either the state or through the colleges. And so what happens is the process is you want to fill out the FAFSA. You'll also want to apply for admission to the colleges when you're a senior in high school. And then once you're accepted and you've done the FAFSA, the college will then issue a financial aid award letter that will summarize the federal, the state, as well as the college scholarships, grants, work study, and student loans that you would qualify for if you attend that institution. And so that's how you get an idea of what you'll be receiving in financial aid, but it's going to be different at each school. And so that's why you want to apply for admission is to several different colleges, because the amount of financial aid you might receive might be different at each school. And so I encourage you to do that. Had another question come through and regarding the income limit for the higher education grant. And so the West Virginia Higher Education Grant, it is based on income, but the driver of it is the expected family contribution that's calculated on your FAFSA. And so we're looking at an expected family contribution of $11,000 or less. And so when you translate that to income, usually the majority of students who qualify for the higher education grant come from families that have an adjusted gross income of $60,000 or less. That would be about 80%, but then you have 20% that come from families that make over $60,000. And the differences being it's also going to depend on not just your income, but how many people are in the household, how many people are attending college, how much money you have in assets, savings, cash, investments, and things like that. So it's not driven just solely on income, but your overall picture that you put on the FAFSA. So hopefully those answered those questions. I know we still have about 5 more minutes. If you have any other questions you want to submit, those are good questions and appreciate those. And hopefully the answers were helpful to you. Again, we'll stay on here just for a little bit longer, but again, appreciate you attending and hopefully this was helpful to you. And again, please feel free to reach out to our office either by phone or email if you do have any questions as you go through this process.
Thank you very much, Brian. We have just a few little reminder notes for our students. If any questions come in though, I will stop and hand it back over to you. But I just want to go over those before we end our session. Thank you to all of our students for joining us today. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey, and we would appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions at wvacrao.org. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other session recordings at that same website at wvacrao.org. Thank you so much, and we will just wait about 2 more minutes if there's any additional questions, and then we will wrap up. All right, I don't see anything else coming in, so we will wrap up our Financial Aid 101 session. Thank you to everyone for attending and have a wonderful rest of your day.